We are live and online with customer experience live conversations, and I have Dr. Dimity Podger, who's going to introduce herself, and then over to Sean Hall, and he's going to introduce himself, and then Marc is also going to introduce himself, just while I get myself organised with my paperwork here. Over to you, Dimity.
Thanks, Alex. So we were briefly chatting about our backgrounds, and my focus with the Noble Workplace is to support organisations really find their purpose, something that is bigger than themselves, is a meaningful purpose, and the values that support them in their organisations in bringing that purpose into being. I guess the Noble Workplace really sprung out of my passion for bringing more justice and equity into society, and how our organisations can really, in their form and function and culture, really deliver on that. And so my focus is around organisational culture, working mostly with medium-sized organisations and not-for-profits and government agencies to date, and businesses, I guess, in a past life when I was working on a values measurement tool in the UK. We're working with businesses and civil societies to work out, well, how do we measure our values and whether we're really practicing what we preach. Yeah.
Good.
So that's brief.
Thank you. Sean, great background there. What is that a photograph, or what have you got going on there? You're making us all envious.
It's a bit of New York in the background. Yeah.
You're not in New York, are you? Just say yes.
I wish.
Would you like to give us a little bit of a brief background, because you have a stellar career in customer and cultural experience, especially around the customer experience and employee engagement.
Well, thank you, Alex, and thanks for inviting me along. So, yeah, my background is a bit of a mixed bag. I share with Marc a bit of a telco history. I spent 7.5 years at Telstra and led the brand transformation there. And then in my last year, I formed an opinion where I felt that I'd done as much as I could to impact the brand experience and the customer experience from a marketing role. And I created a job for myself reporting to the Chief HR Officer, which was called Employee Experience, because my belief, and still is, and I'm sure probably we share this belief, is that your customer experience is a product of your employee experience. And therefore, if you really want to make a significant impact on that, you need to look at the system in which your people operate and in which experiences are created in order to actually deliver something which is better than what it's been before. And so I've recently joined a technology startup called LiveHire, where I have two hats. So I wear the HR hat and I wear the marketing hat, because I do think those two things need to be viewed as one. And what we do there is we provide a way of helping organizations much more deeply understand their talent. And I think that's a foundation for employee experience, and really understanding your people, knowing your people, and therefore being able to understand really what their potential is and what they can deliver, and then creating the system that enables that. And that's what I'm passionate about. So thank you.
That's why I've asked you on, because your depth of experience in both across customer and across employee. Marc Howes is from Barwon Water, excuse me. Would you like to give us a quick introduction about your expertise and what you're bringing to the table today?
Yeah, thanks, Alison, and thanks very much for the invite. So my core career has absolutely been in human resources and solid in that. And before joining Barwon Water, was the head of HR for a large telco vendor, supplying equipment to Telstra. And part of that journey in there was really around how do we become more customer-centric as an organisation, and thinking about that from the people perspective. During that journey, managed to come across a great case study, from that tech side of things in Vineet Nair and his Employee First, Customer Second book and activity that they'd done as an organisation, which was really that employee-customer interface is where businesses are most successful. Was then afforded an opportunity to actually, step out of HR and go and lead a large customer experience team, which is where I've been at for the last 14 months. So it's actually been a journey for me of now standing on the other side of the fence from HR and actually leading a customer-centric workforce journey, being responsible for that customer interface in both now B2C and business to business. So it's been interesting to take my learnings from my HR career to now actually having to apply them and making sure that my employees are fully engaged to give the customers the best outcome that they can have.
Great. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves and coming on the show today. And a big hello to all our viewers that have come online to listen to today's show. My name's Allwood. I'm the host for today's show. And I'm author of Customer Experience is the Brand. And I'm also the CEO of the Holler Agency, and we specialise in customer experience. Just before we get started, I have a complimentary book on offer, which I'll talk more about how you can get a complimentary book at the end of the show. So settle in, and we're going to be talking today about customer and culture alignment. So I thought we might just set the scene and look at what is customer and culture environment. And as we know as practitioners, a great customer experience reflects company alignment around a customer-first culture to ensure there's no gaps in what's promised by the brand and delivered. And what we often do is measure and act on customer satisfaction. Great companies, I think, have been very good at collaborating with internal stakeholders to align the organisation around sharing customer intelligence and breaking down those silos and developing internal systems and processes that support customer satisfaction goals. And great organisations or great brands are also prioritising the design of new touch points that satisfy the customer needs and also create emotional engagement. But really, great brands also recognise the fundamental relationship between customer and employee experience. And put simply, they understand that happy and engaged employees help create more happy and engaged customers. So I'd like to get your thoughts from all of you on what your thoughts are on the link between employee and customer engagement. And a Gallup poll recently that I came across showed that only 13% of employees are highly engaged and would not recommend their employer to their peers. In 2016, what drives employee engagement? Over to you, Sean. I think I'd like you to start us off.
Look, I think the important place to start is really about how we define engagement. And, you know, I was at a conference last year, and I think it was the head of HR from Suncorp spoke. And, you know, traditionally we've measured engagement as sort of a once in the year pulse, you know, where people do this sort of, you know, artificial type survey. And I really think that, you know, if you look at sort of some of the research around things like flow, you know, I think we really need to evolve the way we view engagement to actually being the time that people are engaged. So it's not a once in the year thing. It's actually an ongoing measurement. It's actually looking at, you know, what are people working on? What is it that they feel personally connected to? They're making a contribution to. Who are they working with? What's the environment they're working in? You know, all of those sorts of things which actually contribute, I think, to people performing well. And I think, you know, you mentioned, you know, a lot of data. You know, we're very, very comfortable collecting data around customer. We have very, very poor data, if any, around employees.
Yes.
And we need to get much more comfortable with applying, which is what's the great opportunity for marketers, is applying that same thinking to employee experience the way that we apply it to customer experience, and then being able to empirically link the two.
Yes. Dimity, and I think we'll come back on that point because that's a very relevant point, Sean, is how do we link employee engagement to customer engagement? Dimity, what are your thoughts? What are the drivers in 2016 of employee engagement?
my take on employee engagement and creating a workplace where they're truly engaged is to perhaps not, well, maybe this is controversial, but not think so much about employee engagement and rather think about employees as people who are the protagonists of their lives. They're the leader in their story. And in this age of 2016, it's very much a participatory kind of sense where people want to be part of the things that affect them, the decisions that affect them, what impacts on their work, how they're involved in crafting the environment in which they work and the decisions, and really connecting them with their customers. So I think if we're looking at employee engagement, it's really putting the employee at a distance from the organisation. So I rather think about we're all individuals working together and collectively for a common goal, purpose, and the values of the organisation. They provide a coherent kind of compass. And organisations are becoming platforms where individuals can express, I guess, in the Dan Pink world, their autonomy, their purpose, the thing that's beyond the organisation, something bigger than themselves, and also mastery. So getting the learning environment right, getting the stretch goals right, providing support. But it's really where the organisation is a team rather than there's these employees out there that we need to engage. That's my sense.
Yeah. Marc, some of the drivers that Deloitte's had in their recent report around employee engagement were things like empowering employees today around the CX initiatives and informing and getting employees involved in CX initiatives so that they know what their role is in there. There's issues around flexibility. What are you seeing in your workplace and in your peers' workplace?
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges we're seeing from a customer experience and employee experience is that, we are all customers of other organisations, and so the customer experience and the focus that we've done in creating value for customers has been at a rate far greater than what we've probably done internally within our organisations in terms of valuing our employees. And what is sort of really clear is that employees come to work to do a good job. No employee comes to work to not do a good job. And they come to work and actually it's the small things. It's the small amount of recognition. It's the value. It's the ability to contribute and make changes and use their innovation, because that's what they feel that they're paid for. And I think, my own personal experience this year and towards the other back end of last year is now being responsible for part of my team is a contact centre. And actually one of the things I've done is got the senior leaders of the organisation to come and spend 2 hours, and the commitment at the end of that is that they'll come and spend 2 hours every 6 months in our contact centre actually listening to the customers through that particular channel. The engagement that created in the contact centre group has just been enormous, not because of what they said or whatever, but they feel valued enough that a senior leader will sit next to me to listen to how difficult it can be to deal with certain customer inquiries. So I think, again, and we've some big businesses have lost sight of the small things because we've been cost cutting and leaders have been pulled from pillar to post. Sometimes I think the employee engagement bit is just remembering the small things. And again, when we're customers, we like to feel valued. We like to feel that people understand us and know us. They're the same things that our employees are looking for from an engagement point of view.
Yeah, and in your experience, both inside an organisation and being a customer yourself, is there any brands that you're seeing that are providing great employee experiences?
I am a customer of iiNet, and I saw a guy talk about the customer side of iiNet before in terms of what they do in the back of house. In listening to that presentation, they are absolutely doing a strong focus of enabling their guys to, from a customer support team point of view, is to be innovative, and they've got some really innovative solutions about how people can get together and collaborate and be creative. But I think one of the things that I really heard out of that presentation, which I had experienced myself, is that whilst there might be times you pick up the phone and you might need to wait for 20 minutes, or they will actually make a promise and say, I will call you back in 20 minutes.
Okay.
They've always delivered on that promise.
Okay. Again,
and I think that's
delivering that promise seamlessly across each touch point.
Yeah.
Sean, you've been at the coalface of employee experience. We're seeing organisations create roles now for higher roles than direct head of HR, but a role around employee experience called a chief employee officer. What is this? Is this a trend, or is this what's going on there?
Yeah, I think obviously the biggest one has been the head of HR at Airbnb, who rebranded himself as a chief employee experience officer. And I think what that means is that you're taking, I guess, a greater responsibility for the complexity, I guess, of the relationship that you have with an employee, right? So, the thing, we already know that there's a lot of complexity around relationships with the customers, but, with employees, you've got far more complexity because they're there every day. They've got multiple relationships. There's a lot of vacuums and sort of behaviors or communications that go on in big organizations as well. And so I think that what this is signaling is that there's multiple things which actually contribute to that employee experience. One of the first things I did was try and do an audit essentially within our organization of all the employee touch points that existed. And, it sort of was quite scary in the end, and so, and that's why I think, the work that Dimity is talking about is so important, because, when people have a shared responsibility around sort of culture and that experience and care for each other as well, that's a big part of that.
Yes.
And creating that is really important.
Yes.
And so
also,
I think,
like we look at customer lifetime.
Yeah.
These experience officers are also looking at employee lifetime. Absolutely. And how that they can provide, or how that organisation can provide a great experience through their life at the brand. And as we know, as we mature, as we get older, we have different needs at each of those milestones. Dimity, you've been involved a lot in employee experience, and especially measurement tools to gauge how happy customers are. What's the trends there? I know that you've done a little bit of work and discussions with Culture Amp. That's a great measurement platform. What's your experience there?
So I haven't had as much experience on the customer side, but more on the measurement on the internal side of organisations. And there is the Culture Amp platform, props to them. And there's other organisations that also look at value specifically. And I have a little tool as well. So it's around getting an understanding of what the kind of the behaviours are that really support a culture around collaboration or innovation. So I have a little tool around openness, respect and trust, because they sit at the core of kind of a safe working environment where you can create, you can share your ideas, you can, because you feel valued and respected. So that's part of what I see as core to measurement around the employee experience. And where you're looking vertically through the organisation, how leaders are perceived and engaged, and are they modelling the behaviours that are really important for the employee to feel that sense of respect and value and trust. And I think those are fundamental to organisations that are looking to have a values-driven organisational culture that supports employees who then can really deliver to customers. I think you can't expect from your employees more. You can't. I forget the way that you word it, but if you want to motivate your customers, then you really need to be giving the same and better treatment to your employees.
Which leads us to a very good, juncture in terms of. The holy grail is to get our customers to talk positively about their experiences. Sean, what can we do to boost employee advocacy? I mean, Gallup says 13% would recommend their employer to their friends or peers. That's a very low referral rate. What can we do to boost employee advocacy?
Well, I think, Dimity and Marc have really touched on what is the cornerstone of this, and that's making people feel valued, right? And I think, that's, when I've done, I guess in my own leadership journey, that's been one of the biggest light bulb moments for me is, do I leave work every day with my team feeling like I value them? And that doesn't have to be a big hoo-ha. It could be just noticing and appreciating something really small, and I think that's where it starts. I've just recently done a survey as well by LiveHire where I asked people, do you think your workplace has your best interests at heart? And similarly, about 75% of people say no, and that's, and I think, and one of the reasons for that is there's just really, it comes down to transparency, I think, around things within an organization and how you manage your career. And there's a lot of opaqueness, I think, in a lot of organizations around, how do you get ahead? How do I work on the stuff I want to work on or the people I want to work with? And so I think that increasing transparency within an organization, Dimity talked about openness, those sorts of things are really, really key.
Yes. Marc, what do you think? What's your take on boosting employee advocacy?
It's a non-negotiable, and I think it's also about, I'll go back to, it's the small things. I think sometimes as leaders we think about what's the big bang and what am I going to do to create a big change. I think sometimes it's the small things. So we get voice of customer feedback, and early on I started sharing the positive comments back to the team who that was about, and with a little thank you that I just copied out of Google, and just the comment going, oh, thanks very much for sending me that. I don't normally get the actual customer feedback, because sometimes we get all this customer feedback and it becomes secret, or it's this big bit of data that sits over with management. I think it's just the openness, transparency, sharing it with the individual, and they go home and they talk to their family about, geez, I got this great customer feedback, and my manager or my leader valued that.
Yes.
And it's those things, and we've started, so we have started in our team capturing the employee net promoter score. And since we've done some of those little things, it's been the little things which have driven the score more than, yes, we're trying to implement a great big digital solution that's going to make customers' lives easier. Yes. No one's really talking about that.
Yes.
It's the fact that the line manager gave me a thank you note.
As simple as that, as small as that, in terms of, just common sense things. Remember to treat people the way you'd like to be treated.
The social cohesion part of it, isn't it, Marc? I mean, building that sense of belonging and cohesion and connectedness among the team and among the organisation. Yeah, the little things. It's moment by moment that culture gets created.
Yes.
Sorry, Marc.
What was that?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it's almost like there's just some simple business things that we do. So if you work in a business which has account managers, and account managers write a great list of their account and who they need to talk to and all of those sorts of things. It's just a simple thing of, do I have an account plan or knowledge about my own team? Do I know when their birthday is? Do I know how many children they have? All those sorts of things that we do in customer relationships. When an employee finds out that you know all of that, then the engagement just sort of starts to lift because they feel valued.
Yes, we do the same on in our business in the Holler Agency. We have what we call employee relationship plans, and we also do it for our customers as well. And you're quite right, Marc. It's the little things that make a big difference, and it's connecting with your customers and your employees as people, not just as customers and employees. Dimity, there's a body of research now that says that employees are motivated to work and desiring a stronger purpose and mission and shared values in an organisation. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing, the next generation, attracted to organisations that really can share and align an organisation around why they do what they do rather than what they do?
It's definitely trending in the articles that you read and the research around being really clear about your values and purpose so that you attract the right people and the right people can find you. So again, you need to be committed to that process and be authentic. So you can say that these are our espoused values and our purpose, and people need to see that, and that's lived in the behaviours. But I think, there's discourse around millennials seeking, and Gen Y, Gen X seeking purpose and more purpose. I think we see this dissatisfaction and the low engagement scores partly because this eternal need hasn't actually been met. So I think we've always sought purpose and greater meaning in our lives, and being with people that we feel connected to, and like-minded people around values. And I think now perhaps there's such a competition in the market that everyone's researching around, well, what's linked to performance, engagement, what's engagement about? Well, it's about purpose and mastery and these things. So we're actually just finding out what was always there, and that is this desire to have a meaningful life. So
yes,
I'm not actually sure if we're seeing more of it or we're just noticing it because it's the next bastion of data.
Yes. Thoughts, Sean, on purpose-led organisations and attracting the high calibre staff and of course retaining staff as well.
Yeah, I think it's so I think it's one part for me. So when one of the things I did at Telstra was I undertook a study where I talked to 600 Telstra people, right across the organisation, from the most senior through to our newbies, to grads, to people overseas, people living with a disability, our over 55s. I really wanted to see what was there, and there were I think there were 4 common elements that I've sort of seen, and it's a sort of a framework that I've been using. And it really comes down to human energy systems. And I think that, I know that we've all got 4 energy systems, right? We've got our physical, our mental, our emotional, and our spiritual. Our spiritual is the one that's really connected to purpose. That's the fire in our belly. And I think being able to understand what your personal purpose is and then link that to an organization where you feel that you're actually able to achieve that daily, awesome, right? The emotional stuff is really around the sense of feeling connected, and belonging. That there's people there that are like you, that you like, that you've got friends at work. The physical one is, really around sort of fuel and not burning people out and working flexibly and those sorts of things, and play and fun and things like that. And then the final one is really about mental, which is really focus. So is the energy that I'm expending in my day, is that creating value? Or is it stuff that, does it energize me, or does it, deplete me? And that's, I think, is one of the things that, these organizations that are leaning towards it, I think they're really understanding, almost like a lean startup methodology where, the energy in an organization either creates value or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then you need to look at the reasons for that and remove that friction.
Yes. Dimity, just while we're on the subject of shared value and purpose-led organisation, what, in your opinion, and you've got a tremendous amount of experience here, what does it take to build a sustainable, values-driven culture across the business?
Just a little question.
Sorry. Give us your secret sauce.
I think the first one is that the organisation and the business sees that it's critical, it's important, they're committed to it, and they're willing to go the long distance. If you're going to embark on a journey in creating a values-driven organisation, recognise that it requires personal transformation as well as organisational transformation. Both are required, and personal transformation might be harder.
Yes.
You need to really be clear about what those values are. And if you're going to sit in the boardroom and decide what they are, you're probably not going to capture the culture that is there, that is loved by people. So
yes.
I think we go back to that idea of protagonists. People want to participate in co-creating the place where they work. And there are ways and means of doing that in
Yes.
large organisations and small organisations
Yes.
to gather that participation. I guess the other piece of it is ensuring that your systems and strategy and everything are aligned with your purpose and your values, and
Yes.
you're hiring the right people, not the same people, but the people
Yes.
with that code, that DNA. That your remuneration systems, your awards, recognitions, the way that you work with your partners, your suppliers, you involve your customers in the process of articulating who you are, creates this system, this ecosystem that's an aligned ecosystem around your values. You communicate, you use them. Is this decision in alignment with our values and our purpose? So they're not just on the wall.
Yes.
they're living,
or on the
breathing.
website.
On the website. They need to be there.
I don't need to be there.
Yeah, that's perhaps the last place they need to be for it to be a sustainable business.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And would you like to? Yes, I would expect, Sean, that you've got something to say on this, because creating values and then linking that to behaviour, especially when we're talking about great customer experience businesses. What is your take on getting that alignment across the organisation?
Well, I think, the key thing that for me, and I definitely experienced this at Telstra, was Dimity talked about involving people, right? So, if you're going to expect people to actually live something, then involve them in it. Don't force it on them. And that was, the biggest surprise to me out of that whole thing was just how much people thanked me just for listening. It wasn't that they expected everything on board, but thank you for listening because I feel heard, and therefore, back to the point again, if I feel heard, I feel valued.
Yes. And was your work at Telstra a collaborative effort across the organisation? Did you get a wide range of stakeholders, from the receptionist through to the CEO, involved in co-creating the values of the organisation, and then how that behaviour turned up?
Yeah, so I think that there were definitely some lessons for us in terms of, so we, I was involved in the launch of our new purpose and values, and there was a lot of consultation around those. I mean, there was also, obviously, there needs to be some leadership around this too, because values need to move you forward as an organisation, not just necessarily reflect what today is, but actually be aspirational in some way to move that organisation to be better. I do think that if there's one thing that I think is really important, it is the leadership role modelling of those, and that the first thing that people will notice is when the leaders are the ones which are actually, their behaviour is incongruent with those values. So if you say that, one of your values is around trusting people, and then, you send out an email that says, no one's allowed to use their corporate credit card over Christmas.
Or no one's allowed to use their mobile phones.
You sort of sitting next
in the office. Yeah.
And it really is that simple, and I think, and that's where we have to hold people accountable for that. And I think one of the, I guess one of the learnings for us is that we did find sometimes that sometimes people could use either the values, and this comes down to them really being embedded and involved, was as a sword or a shield, and so it's very important, I think, that having really constructive conversations around behaviours that are turning up, and you're not using them in that manner. And I think, and identifying and when that does turn up, what are the root causes behind that, right?
Yes.
Because that to me, there's more work to do.
Yes.
So I think everything that Dimity was saying is right, and I like 100% believe that personal transformation needs to be a focus if you want to drive organisational transformation.
Yes, I think just moving from culture to systems and processes, Marc, and I'm hoping I can get you to stay online and your technology doesn't fail you in the next 30 seconds. But how does today's CX leader create a cross-functional mindset in the business, whereby those operational silos create a collaborative culture, and importantly, that we're meeting our customers' expectation?
Yeah, I think it's about being able to find joint business problems to solve or customer business problems to solve. And it's also not trying to pick the biggest thing first. Try and find a little quick win, and but then also have the big one there. I think the two that I've personally had experience with, so in the telco environment, we had a program which we call Barrier Guys, and it's actually maybe call it a little bit of a program. And what it was about saying, what are the barriers that are stopping us being more customer focused? And then it takes away a personal functional silo conversation and saying, well, what is the problem? Oh, sorry.
It takes away the personal was where you were up to.
Okay. I'll take away because sometimes in the silos, people feel like they're being attacked. We're all attacking my piece of work, but it's not about that at all. And in my most recent role, we've called the program Mythbusters. So what are the things that hold us back? And then when you get the people together, then they start to think, well, it's actually not about me and my function. It's about a myth that I'm busting, or it's a barrier that I'm trying to break down. And then you can use all of the tools that you want underneath that, whether it's people, processes, technology, or human-centered design, or anything. They're all just enablers, but it's getting the people together for a common cause in a non-offensive or non-attacking way to my silo or my function.
A great segue into, how does a CX leader today shape a customer-first culture?
I think in terms of how do you do it, I think a bit to maybe what Sean was sort of talking about before, I think it's the leadership. I think there's two sort of things as a customer experience leader you need to have. You need to have a storytelling capability where you can share with the organisation your own reflections on customer experience, because you are a customer, how you reflect stories of outside in, and then reflect stories about how your employees have driven great experiences. So you sort of join those. So I think that's one imperative as a leader you need to be able to have. And then it is a small toolkit of simple things where to bring people together, because it's people working collaborative with simple tools which will create innovation. And then everyone will feel like a winner in the...
Just before we finish up, Sean, do you have any thoughts to add to, how do we shape or how does today's CX leader shape a customer-first culture?
I think I've just built on that. I think one of the things that I'm sort of quite passionate about in this area is really focusing on design, I guess, looking to inspiration that's sort of outside the norm. So, I think accessibility design is a really key thing to be thinking about in terms of customer experience. So if you look at, say, the success of Apple and really, they have a saying that inclusivity inspires innovation, and they deliberately focus on those people that have more complexity in their lives to design simple, intuitive interfaces, because everyone benefits,
Yes.
And that's harder to start with, but ultimately everyone benefits. So that's saying, it's sort of a little bit tangential, but I think that that's something that a good customer experience needs to just not look at the norm. They need to look for the challenges that are, a little bit outside that, because that forces creativity and to think differently.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're just about out of time. I could sit here and speak easily with you for another half hour on this topic. I just wanted to move quickly to what's been on your CX or customer experience radar this week. I've had a couple of networking events. One of them was with Qualtrics, which is the voice of the customer platform. And Ryan Smith, the CEO, was down here to launch their Asia Pacific head office. And I've also had an article, one of my articles written up in Marketing magazine on the topic of customer and culture, if anyone would like to check that out. Sean, what's on your radar? What's been on your radar this past week?
I think a couple of things is I just want to reinforce that book that Marc talked about is so essential to have a read about employees first, customers second. it's definitely worth that getting on your radar. So thanks for reminding me about that, because I might go back and have another look. The second thing is, I've got there's a Customer 360 symposium coming up in the Hunter Valley in April, which I'm going to be presenting a keynote on this very topic too, about that your customer experience doesn't start with your customer. And I think what's on my mind is that it's still marketers that I think feel very passionately have this ability, I think, working much more closely with HR functions actually to drive this sort of customer, this thinking that we've been talking about today. And so I think the more that we can sort of start talking about this, the better.
Yep. Dimity?
Cool. It's funny, I'm so focused on culture, I think less about customer experience. Isn't that funny? But I had a wonderful session with the youth food movement on the weekend, and looking at their volunteer network and how they're building a really wonderful movement around youth and food and the food system, and just the conversation there around how critical it is to provide an experience that is so linked to your purpose, so and your values. And I think that's what's on my radar mostly is around that alignment of the organisation. You are on the inside what you are on the outside. And I guess in that sense, I'm interested in transparency as well. So Buffer, for example, Open Buffer is an interesting one. Buffer is an app, and you can go to their website and look at their values, and they're kind of transparent about their reflections of what's going on internally and what they're learning around building a culture. So I think that's also something that might be on the radar for organisations, is how transparent are you on your learning about becoming a culture-first organisation? Letting
Marc?
people in.
This week's been, for me, so I'm putting in an account management methodology at the moment, and this week's been about shifting the conversation away from the technology, the CRM tool, back to what are the people of the process bit that we want as an organisation to achieve in terms of when we're engaging with our B2B customers, and how do we get the whole organisation on board. And the second cool thing, I saw a pretty cool maturity model by Merck CX on Wednesday. And I've sort of thought, well, maybe this is a great way where, again, I can get out across the organisation and get them to think or rate themselves about, do they really think we are customer-centric, and get them to make a diagnosis themselves.
Seminar this morning. Very, very interesting platform.
Oh, okay, yep.
All right. Well, if you'd like to get a complimentary copy of my book, Customer Experience is the Brand, you can go to alexallwood.com.au. That's alexallwood.com.au, and you'll see a tab called Book Giveaway. Just pop in click that button and go through to the landing page and put in the promo code CX Live, and that page will be open for 45 minutes. Our next Customer Experience Live Conversation program is on April the 15th at 12 noon. So make a diary note to tune back in. And also a big, big thank you to all those that have listened to our program, and a special thank you to Marc, Sean and Dimity for joining us today and sharing their wealth of knowledge and insights. I'd like to wish you all a great weekend. And we'll see you next time.